Hey, this is Stu Schaefer, and I'm about to explain how you can really lose weight, burn off body fat, and still eat carbs. In fact, how to use carbs to cause you to burn fat. Aha! So let's dive right in. First, the big problem is what you'll hear is not exactly what's true. What you'll hear is, hey, if you're eating carbs, or if your blood sugar's up, or there's carbs in your system, you can't burn fat. And that's not true. That is not true. What really is true is if your insulin levels are too high, that will prevent you from burning fat. And then if they're really too high, that'll cause you to store fat. That's one way you'll store fat. There's others, but that's one way. This is for our conversation. Now, let me show you how and some examples of folks that were able to burn off body fat while eating carbs and increasing carbs. And I'm not talking about vegetables. I'm talking about bread and pasta and rice and fruit and all sorts of good stuff. We'll just take a look really quick. First, you'll see Aaron eating carbs. Okay, lots of carbs. The next one you'll see is Denise. You see the huge transformation she made. Devin, you see the amazing transformation she made. I mean, she took 10 years off her life. She looks like she's in her 20s now. And even Ruth, in just 8 weeks, you can see how much her stomach shrank by increasing carbs. So what the confusion is hey, if that insulin level is high and causes you to store fat or you can't burn fat, then let's just cut carbs altogether. That's the solution, right? Not so fast. Now, that would seem logical, but I want to explain what's really going on here. And then I'm going to explain the 4 things you need to do in order to successfully eat carbs and lose weight so you don't have to keep restricting or cutting out entire food groups. There's about 11 ways that you can spike your insulin, and I think 10 out of the 11 don't include carbohydrates. All right, so let's take a look at them really quick. So number 1, obviously if you eat too much sugar or carbs, that will cause an insulin spike. And yes, that will cause you to store fat. But look at number 2. If you eat too much fat, that'll also cause your insulin to spike. Why? Well, even though fat is slower to digest, it still gets released into your body. And if you eat too much at once, it's going to release too quickly, and that will still elevate your insulin. If you've seen some of my other previous talks, you'll also remember that if you eat too much fat, it can block the muscle cells from uptaking insulin and amino acids and glucose, and that'll cause insulin spikes. All right, now, too big of a meal. So these are all the too much. Too big of a meal. If you eat too much at once, the bottom line is your body won't be able to process all of it. Okay, the perfect example. I'll see if I can get a clip. Okay, back in the day, there was a I Love Lucy show, and they were working on an assembly line sorting chocolate, and the conveyor belt started going too quick. It was too fast for them to sort all the chocolate, so they start stuffing it everywhere, their bra, their mouth, you name it. Well, the body's kind of like that. If you put too much in at once, you eat too big of a meal, it can't process everything coming in all at once, and it ends up storing it as fat, and your insulin levels will go up. Okay, number 4, if you're not combining the right foods. Now, this is critical. You've got to view food like medicine. If you have a medical problem, you go see an expert because they know how to treat it correctly. With food, it's the same. Food can solve a lot of issues. But too many people oversimplify it. They just say, oh, calories in, calories out. Or they say, oh, just don't eat carbs or do the intermittent fasting. And these are just an oversimplification. And because of that, you're ignoring so many other factors that you end up hurting your body. You're not using food proactively. You're actually using it against yourself. This causes a lot of problems down the road. All right. But you've got to understand, you've got to eat the right food in the right combination, and that will create the correct chemical reactions in your body. This will allow you to eat carbs, and actually it'll help build muscle. It'll help stimulate your thyroid, stimulate your metabolism. That's why you saw the pictures earlier where people can lose so much body fat faster than ever before while eating carbs. In fact, a lot of my clients were not eating carbs, and when we put the carbs back in, that caused them to start burning fat, because carbs are so beneficial when you know how to use them. When you know how to use them. Okay, number 5 is if you're eating the wrong food at the wrong time of day. Your body changes through the day. And I've talked about this at length in the past. You can go check that out. If you're eating the wrong food at the wrong time, then absolutely, you're working against your body. So you can definitely cause insulin spikes doing that. And this will cause you to store fat. Or at least it'll prevent you from burning fat. Now, it doesn't even have to be carbs. It can be other things. Certain supplements, things like, we're going to talk about things like coffee, caffeine, these types of things. If you're consuming them at the wrong time, that can also cause insulin spikes, which will prevent you from losing fat and can cause you to store fat. All right, look, number 6, alcohol. Nobody wants to hear that, but it's true, okay? And especially too much alcohol, too often. This will cause big problems. Number 7 is caffeine, believe it or not. Caffeine is a stimulant. And if you look at the next one after caffeine, number 8 is stress. So caffeine a lot of times can put you into a stressed state. It can elevate your adrenaline and cortisol. Now, a lot of women who are already stressed with work, with family, emotionally, mentally, and then they're not sleeping well, and so then they rely on caffeine to get them through the day, and then they're trying to work out. Meanwhile, they're not eating any carbs. They're fasting, trying to get their blood sugar low because they've heard that's the only way to lose fat, and they totally destroy their body and wreck their metabolism. You develop repressed metabolic syndrome. So if they're drinking caffeine, it sets them over the edge. They get the adrenal fatigue. So that can be it. Obviously, stress we just talked about. Stress will raise your insulin. So if you're over-exercising, if you're under-eating, if you're fasting all day, if you've cut out carbs, all of these things lead to increased stress. Why it's so confusing is when you start intermittent fasting or a ketogenic or low-carb diet, the reason you see results initially is you will pull your blood sugar down, you will pull your insulin down. But then what happens is then it stresses the body, and now you're so stressed the insulin starts cranking up all the time. This is why a lot of women will say, oh gosh, what happened? It was working. Now it's not working. I'm gaining weight again. What happened to my hormones? They're all out of whack. Why? Oh, it must just be menopause and aging. It isn't. These are some of the hidden causes. All right. All right. Now, number 9 is poor sleep. Okay. So that just throws, fuel on the fire, I guess. So again, a lot of us are overstressed today. We're not getting adequate sleep. Then we try to use things like caffeine. Meanwhile, we're trying to exercise to lose weight. We over-exercise, and it's just this huge domino effect that keeps the body in a state where it won't burn fat. And carbs can offset these things in a really, really helpful way. The key is you've got to do it right. Not all carbs are created equal. And you've got to combine them correctly. We're going to talk about the 4 things to do to make sure that when you're eating carbs, you can still burn fat. In fact, how to force your body to burn fat. All right, now, the last 2. We've got inflammation, and I put this here, is smoking. Okay? But most people watching this probably aren't smoking, but this smoking will raise your insulin. But so will inflammation. So if you're eating foods that you don't realize you have a food sensitivity to, if you've got a gut issue and you haven't healed it, an autoimmune issue or a thyroid issue, something going on that's causing inflammation, that inflammation will short circuit your body's ability to burn fat. It'll crank up the insulin in a lot of cases. Now, a lot of clients that work with me, they're eating all these healthy foods, different fruits and vegetables and things like this. And I'll give you an example, tomatoes or Brussels sprouts and their broccoli, and they're thinking, oh man, this is great. I'm eating all these foods and they're helping me. Everyone says, eat the broccoli, and eat the Brussels sprouts. And I'm gaining weight. I'm inflamed. I got joint pain. I think something's wrong with me. Oh my gosh. And all it is they have either a gut issue that's preventing them from digesting these foods correctly, and so it's kind of manifesting as a food sensitivity, or they have a food sensitivity to them for whatever reason, and they're causing inflammation. So now their body can't heal, number one, so it stays stuck. And number two, the inflammation is causing the insulin to run high, so they're unable to burn fat. In some cases, they'll still store fat. And this, by the way, is why when you don't eat enough, starvation or overexercise, some of these things will trigger your body to crank up its own insulin and to release certain enzymes that will cause you to store fat very easily. And this is why you can't oversimplify things to calories in, calories out. There's always a sweet spot. It's medicine. It's precise. It's not just calories in, calories out, or don't eat carbs, or just don't eat and fast all day. You just can't do that. All right, now let's talk about the 4 steps, the 4 ways to get the carbs in and cause your body to burn fat. Number 1 is you've got to combine the right foods. A lot of times what will happen is you eat one food, it'll cause you to store fat. It'll cause insulin spikes. You eat another food, same thing. But when you combine them, it has the opposite effect. It levels things out. It causes the correct hormones and enzymes to be produced in the body. And this will cause you to burn fat. Now, the key is, though, everyone's a little different. And you need to understand what works for your body. There's a lot of factors: age, gender, activity, body fat, lean muscle mass, diets you've done in the past, your schedule, when you do your activity, your likes, your dislikes, a lot of, like if you have inflammation or gut issues or autoimmune issues, all these things come into play. So there's not a one-size-fits-all. Number 2, the second way to get carbs in and get your body to burn fat, you've got to eat the right food at the right time. Now, I've talked about this at length, and so you might want to go back and check out some of my previous talks here. But when you eat the right food at the right time, things will be so level, your body will be able to use those carbs correctly. They'll go to the right places. They'll go to your muscles, your liver, your brain, certain organs. They won't go to your fat cells, but they'll speed up your metabolism. They'll fire up your body. They'll cause all the chemical reactions in your body to speed up because those chemical reactions use glucose. So this is where you optimize how your body works on the inside. Yes, it's true you could survive without carbs. So that's just not dying. But do you want to just survive or do you want to thrive? The carbs will enable you to thrive. Okay, the third way to integrate carbs and get your body to burn fat is you've got to eat the right type. There are so many characteristics of carbs. There's 16 different types, and they all have a different effect. And, you've got the glycemic index, you've got glycemic load, you've got insulin index, you've got grains, you've got non-grains, gluten-free. Certain carbs will go to different parts of the body. Certain carbs will go into your muscles. Certain carbs will go into your liver. Certain carbs will go right into the bloodstream and just kind of be pushed around, and they'll end up in the fat cells really easily. And depending on what you eat with them, sometimes they'll push a lot of other things into the fat cells, and they'll cause insulin spikes. So you've got to understand, not all carbs are created equal, just like anything else. So you can't just say, oh, carbs are good or carbs are bad, or hey, eat this amount of carbs or don't eat this. You've got to understand the right types of carbs, number 1, what to pair that kind of carb with, number 2, and when, what part of the day are different types of carbs appropriate and different types of carbs are not appropriate. And this is so individualized, it's a little bit too complex to just say everything, oh, just do this. You can't do that. It's like if you go into a doctor, they've got to prescribe it for you, for what you are dealing with, for who you are. And that's how this works. You can't just do a blanket. But I'm trying to give you the concepts here so to help you understand why this is a little bit more complex and what you should be looking for. Okay, the fourth way to eat carbohydrates and still get your body to burn fat is you've got to eat the right amount or portion size. There's been a big debate, probably for the last 30 years. Should you have more meals through the day or less? Now, some people will argue, oh, eat less because then you're not spiking your blood sugar as much. The argument for smaller and more meals is that you're eating smaller amounts, so little at each meal, that it doesn't really spike your insulin. And if you look at it over the course of the day, it actually stabilizes it. And that's true. And so more smaller meals is the way to go to stabilize your blood sugar, to stabilize your insulin, so that you're not pouring in too many carbs ever all at once. This is one of the keys that not a lot of people talk about, okay? And this is how you do it. So I hope this has been helpful. We're going to splash up a couple videos here all about food combinations, timing, to really help you with this. You want to watch these videos. I'll see you on these other videos, and I'll see you on the next one. All right, I hope this is helpful. Take care.